During the pres- During this presentation, we ask that you keep your microphones muted. This action will eliminate any noise that may disturb our presenters. We will have a question and answer period at the end of the program. Also, if you need professional development credit, there will be a link placed in the chat to obtain that information after the Q&A session. Before we begin, we have greetings from Mr. Raul Cunningham, the president of the Louisville branch NAACP. Mr. Cunningham?
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. It's a pleasure for me to bring you greetings on behalf of the Louisville branch NAACP. This is one of the series that we participate and partner with various organizations across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This year, the NAACP gave $74,230 in scholarships, $31,000 to undergrad students, and $40,000 for those who are earning professional degrees. We're proud of this record, and we look forward to our scholarship program again next year. The NAACP has been involved in educational issues for decades, going back to the equalization of pay for minority teachers who were then in Louisville and Kentucky schools. Again, we welcome you and we look forward to working with each of you. And we invite you to not only to participate in sessions such as this, but we invite you to join us. We have an open door policy and we will welcome your participation. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. At this time, I would like to introduce a new addition to our team, Mr. Ian Brandon, who is the Administrative Satellite Supervisor at Shawnee and the California site. Mr. Ian Brandon will be joining us throughout this forum. Welcome, Mr. Brandon, and he will introduce, he was going to introduce Dr. Marshall, but he's going to speak on Dr. Marshall's behalf.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be introduced to you all. I'm looking forward to joining this forum and contributing in any way I can. And just want to extend greetings on behalf of Dr. John Marshall and the DEP department. So good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. I have the pleasure tonight to introduce our panel of speakers. Let's begin with Dr. Charles Davis. Dr. Charles Davis Jr. is the Chief Comprehensive Services and Data Officer of Evolve 502. In this role, Dr. Davis is responsible for developing community-wide support to impact students and families along the cradle to career pipeline. This work is accomplished by regular convening partners from the public, private, and philanthropic sectors. A Dayton, Ohio native, Dr. Davis earned his bachelor's degree in history from Eastern Michigan University, his master's of education degree from Antioch University, McGregor, and his doctorate in education leadership, evaluation, and organization development from the University of Louisville. Mr. Davis also holds a graduate certificates from the University of Pennsylvania, the Georgetown University of McCourt Schools of Public Policy, the Northwestern University Kellogg Center of Executive Education, and is a nationally certified diversity professional. Our next presenter this evening is Dr. Gwendolyn Golfner. She is the Family Resource Youth Service Center Manager at Jefferson County Public Schools. The primary purpose of Friskies is to remove non-cognitive barriers to learning. She works alongside an amazing group of coordinators that do whatever it takes to provide resources and wraparound services to families of Jefferson County. Dr. Golfner has been the manager of Friskies since July 2018. Before that, she had been a human resource administrator and principal. She is a 1981 graduate of Moore High School. Dr. Golfner received a bachelor's degree and master's degree from the University of Louisville. She began her career with Jefferson County Public Schools as a homeschool coordinator. Dr. Golfner's teaching profession started as a special education teacher, and she has served as an instructional coach. She has served as an adjunct professor at Spalding University. Dr. Golfner was the recipient of the Mary Angela Shaughnessy Leadership Award from Spalding University. Dr. Golfner was recognized for the Russell Gorf Leadership Award by Jefferson County Public Schools. She was also recognized as an Adult Black Achiever of the Year by Zeon Chemical and the recipient of the Delta Zeta Special Education Award from the University of Louisville. Our next presenter will be Miss Giselle Danger. She is originally from Santiago, Cuba, and has made Louisville, Kentucky her home since 2005. Giselle earned both her bachelor's and master's degree in social work from the University of Louisville, then went on and spent 9 years as a developmental therapist. Currently, Ms. Danger acts as a specialist of access opportunity for Jefferson County Public Schools Division of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty. Her main role as the Student Equity and Community Engagement Coordinator is assisting in keeping the district compliant with the McKinney-Vento law and ensuring homeless students are identified by school personnel and other agencies. Through access and opportunity, Giselle ensures that homeless students receive the educational services from which they are eligible, and that their guardians are informed of equal rights. At this time, I'm turning it over to our guest. Mr. Davis, Dr. Davis, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. Thank you for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. As Ms. Patrick said, my name is Charles Davis, and I am, again, originally not from the Commonwealth, but I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I moved here from Cincinnati. My career has primarily been in the social service or education space. I've had a lot of different jobs, which is a conversation for another day, but currently, I'm with Evolve 502, most recently with JCPS in the Diversity, Equity, and Poverty Department. So at Evolve 502, we are an organization, we're new in age, but the work that surrounds Evolve 502 has actually been going on for the better part of 20 years, actually. And so what the overall theory of change is that we are trying to merge not only the academic supports, but also the social, emotional, and wraparound supports, understanding that we have a lot of data, we have a lot of research that shows not only nationally, but in this community, students failing to persist to college or succeeding in school is not purely a function of their intelligence. There are lots of things that surround young people, including poverty, including community violence, which we've unfortunately experienced most recently, but there are lots of things that can inhibit a young person from being their best selves at school. And so with Evolve 502, we primarily address this in really 3 ways. The first way is through providing scholarships. So our board of directors is currently raising dollars to provide a last dollar scholarship for every student who graduates from JCPS to attend either JCTC or any other Kentucky Community College or Simmons College of Kentucky free of charge. The second piece is that we pull together a board of directors that seeks to facilitate systems change. And so folks on our board, you may recognize, the mayor is on our board, Dr. Polio, Adria Johnson, who is the new CEO of Metro United Way. So lots of very top level individuals, Alex Houston, Alderman Helton. And so the goal is to bring all these people together to figure out how can we all work together to more positively impact young people in a better way. And then the third piece, which is what I oversee, is to coordinate wraparound services. So what I do primarily is pull individuals together. And again, just because of my, I'll say, diverse experiences. Like I said, I've worked in the private sector. I started off my career in information technology. I worked for a couple of corporations. I've worked at museums, the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, if any of you all have had a chance to visit that in Cincinnati. I've worked there. I've been a teacher. I'm a certified high school teacher. I've worked in educational administration. I've worked in nonprofit administration as an executive director. And so the one thing that I recognize from all those different work experiences is that people who care about education, they all care, but they care differently. So the conversation from a nonprofit perspective is different from a museum educator, is different from a classroom teacher. And so because I've had those various experiences, what I try to position Evolve 502 to be is really a convener to have those conversations around how can we all work together. And really what I've been pushing over the last probably year and a half is to really empower individuals that everybody doesn't have to be everything to everyone. And I know when you're in the social service sector or you're working with families, you're working with kids, you see a need and you're going to try to fill the need. What that does though is a lot of times it creates inefficiency, it creates redundancy, you're wasting money, you're wasting time, and you're not really serving your client the best that you can. So one of the things since the pandemic has unfortunately been ravaging, everywhere, is we stood up what we call community learning hubs. And so what we realized was that there were a number of organizations who were supporting kids, but they needed resources. And so we said, well, what do you all need? We sent out surveys, we had, focus groups, we just talked to people and we said, well, what do you need? And so they told us, primarily they need staffing support, they needed PPE, they needed money, they needed food, they needed laptops, all these different type of things. And so what we did was what I call, we aggregated the need. And so we took all that information and we took it back to all those leaders that I spoke of and we said, how can you all help? And so, I'm proud to say that, during that time, we raised probably over $1.5 million that we were able to push directly back out to organizations to support upwards of 2,500 kids over that time. And so we tried to capture the momentum behind that, and we rolled it out into summer. And so we had our first inaugural community-wide summer learning initiative, where we were able to support, our goal was 5,000 kids, but we served actually over 6,000 kids. So it was quite a summer, but the important thing was that everybody pulled together and pushed together, and everybody did what they were best at. So we had teachers teaching, we had nonprofits working with kids, we had food nutrition services delivering meals, we had many of our enrichment providers either doing dance classes or robotics or art classes or DJ classes, whatever it is you can. We provided lots of different opportunities. And like I said, what it just really provided through the support of JCPS and the city, of course, is that everybody could push in and serve kids and families without trying to overextend themselves. Because typically, again, a kid comes to you in need, you're going to try to figure it out. You're going to flip through the yellow pages, or you're going to Google, try to figure it out. But what we were able to do is connect people to folks in the ESL department, folks in with social who had mental health supports. We had mental health practitioners who were out and about. We had Friskies who were able to come out and connect to those basic needs. And so, connecting with Dr. Golfner's office. So again, really what we are trying to do at Evolve 502 is to not recreate the wheel, to figure out how can everybody in this community who all wants the same things, we all want to support kids. We just have to sometimes, I hate to say it, we have to move the adult problems out of the way, that this is my program and this is my area and this is my thing. And luckily enough, I'm willing to have those tough conversations to say, if you're really about serving kids, how do we serve them? What can you bring to the table and how can we put it all in? And now that we've actually done it, I think people believe that it is possible. And so now what our goal is just to expand, bring more people to the table, because we got a lot of kids in need. We got a lot of kids who need support, and we're not going to get there unless we get there together.
Thank you. Ms. Golfner? Dr. Golfner, I'm sorry. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Let's go to Miss Danger, and we'll come back to Dr. Golfner.
Sure. So thank you again for the introduction. I am always excited to meet new people, but I'm very excited today because I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces too, a lot of people that I get to work on a daily basis. Definitely working a lot with the family resource coordinator. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that coordination. And Charles Davis was part of the Diversity, Equity, and Poverty Department. And in his new role, we always try to coordinate services too. So it's always nice to see familiar faces working for students. So my name is Giselle Danger. I'm the specialist for access and opportunity with JCPS. I have been in this role for 8 years. And I want to give you a little bit of information about the services that we offer for what I will call the most highly disadvantaged population in JCPS. My team serves homeless students. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the definition of homeless is, because sometimes it's difficult to grasp what a homeless student is. We also serve foster care students that have been placed in the custody of the state. And also we are supporting families that are newly refugees. And so I will say that between all those three populations, we serve about, I will say close to 10,000 to 10 to 12,000 students every year. So in JCPS, we have been able to identify between 5,000 and 6,000 homeless students every year. But I want to say that that number really does not represent the reality of homelessness in our city. And the reason for that is because it's very difficult for families to come forward and say, I'm facing homelessness. There is a lot of stigma attached to the word homelessness. There is a lot of fears that families have shared with us because they believe that once we identify them for services, that the next step will be to contact CPS, which is that's not true. We actually work with families to make sure that they can secure a space in school. Everything that we do in our department actually work around ensuring that they will have a stability and continuity. So let me tell you a little bit about what is a student homeless. Homeless student is actually a federal definition. So what I'm about to tell you is something that you can take this information and take it to anywhere in the United States and it will continue to be applicable. So a homeless student is someone that lack fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, meaning that they do not have a place of their own. Many will recognize us if you have a student that is living in the street, living in a shelter, it's easy for families to recognize that they are homeless. But actually, about 70% of our students that are homeless, they have a roof over their heads, but it's not their home. So they might be living with a friend or a relative, but they don't have a place that they can call home. Sometimes they are a guest in somebody else's house. So that is why this type of forums are so important, because we get to share this information so families can understand what services are available for them. So why identifying students that are homeless becomes so important is because they are protected under federal law. There are a lot of protections that they have, because we know homeless students, they are highly mobile. They don't stay in one school. And when that happens, what we see is that they jump from school to school as they lack stable housing. And when you don't have a school to call home, many times would that translate into low academic performance, low engagement, not only in academics, but also in the sense of belonging with school. We see a high rate of suspension and behavior problems. We see a under-identification for students that could be eligible for gifted and talented programs, and over-identification for special services, special education services. So what our department does actually is making sure that once we identify a student, they can stay in one school. So no matter where the student end up living, they will be able to attend one school, and we provide transportation, and we also provide any type of educational resource that they will need to be successful in school. And we do that in collaboration with family resource coordinators, agencies. That's why I was saying that I was seeing a lot of familiar faces, because resources are limited. So it is important that we work in collaboration. Every single school in JCPS has a school homeless liaison, and that person works directly with our team to make sure that the services are happening not only at the district level, but also at the school level. Many times those liaisons are family resource coordinators. So that is why the collaboration is so important. And Charles Davis will tell you that they work together with us many times to addressing some of the needs that we're unable to fulfill at the school level. Because at the end of the day, many times our focus is academics, but we know that they will need housing, they will need mental health support, many times they need childcare, and those are barriers that really prevent families for getting out of the cycle of homelessness. I wanted to point out that there is a big correlation between homelessness and race and ethnicity. In JCPS, most of our students identify as homeless are either Black or Latinos, and unfortunately, it takes them longer to be able to get out of the cycle of homelessness. That's why having these critical conversations are so important, and reviewing the data from the perspective of not only seeing homelessness as lack of housing, but also lack of opportunity, systems in place that prevent people from moving out of homelessness is so important. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I enjoy always talking to people like Vanessa McPhail in this forum, and Charles Davis, and because they are willing to have those difficult conversations, because that's the only way that we can, number one, see the issues for what they are, and also move forward in a collaborative effort.
Thank you. Is Dr. Golfner ready to speak now?
Let's see. Am I?
Yes, there you
Okay,
are.
perfect.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, I wasn't sure what was going on with my mic, so I had to do some other kind of things. But again, thank you all for having me. I'm honored to be here. I just want to give you a little bit about what we do in the FRISC office and share with you all. But so the Family Resource Center Department, it's part of the Academic Support Programs Unit. And each of those departments have a direct impact on student success. The overall mission of the FRISC program, it started with the CARES Act of 1990, and it was established to enhance students' ability to succeed in school. As the JCPS FRISC manager, I am the district contact between JCPS and the state. I work with 2 state regional program managers, and they work as the liaison to make sure how we connect our coordinators to families and students. And the Family Resource Youth Service Center coordinators, they're known as the Friskies. So you're going to hear us say that a lot, and you've already heard that. And then even too, when I say families, we're talking about it could be extended families, but we just we use the word families. So just always want to make sure that I share that as well. Our overall barriers is just to remove barriers to learning, any kind of barriers. That's what we focus on. We have family resource center coordinators, and we call them FRCs. They serve our elementary level. And then we have youth service center coordinators. They serve our middle and high school. So sometimes you may hear us say Friskies, you may hear us say FRC, our youth service centers. Overall, we have 113 coordinators. They serve 147 schools. We have grown when I started this position in 2018, we had 96 coordinators, but through just growth and through the pandemic, the need has certainly been there. At the state level, they have just seen the need, and they helped us acquire just recently, since July the 1st, we've added 7 new centers. And so we are certainly, I guess it's a lot of work out there, and everybody recognizes it. And so in our department, we're really just excited that we continue to grow and be able to serve this community. Each center offers a unique blend of programs and services, but they all provide a core areas. And I think that's really important. And I want to say that again, because we really cater to the community that we are located in. And so we do have centers all over Jefferson County, and that's to the east end, to the west end, to the south end, to the north end. But we have, like I said, we serve 147 schools, and those programs are unique. We do have core components. We have 5 at the elementary level, and then we have 5 components at the middle and high school levels. And so those components sort of drive the things that we do. And so that's what makes, I guess, the commonality. But if you talk to your coordinator, and it sounds like they're doing a little bit something different than the coordinator down the street, it's designed that way. It's designed to be flexible based on the family's needs. And that's what's really important. We're all about making sure that we meet families where they are and helping them whatever needs they may have. If there's parents on here, please reach out to us. We want you to know that we're here to help. We connect families to different agencies where we've been fortunate. Like Dr. Davis said, we have an opportunity to work with him. We collaborate with JCPS, our early childhood. We collaborate with the neighborhood places. We collaborate with a lot of group mentoring. And so we just try to, whatever the families say their need are, that's what we do. And so when we say whatever it takes, that's really what our department does. It's an amazing group of coordinators. And I just don't say that lightly. I'm really saying because they have a heart for the people. They offer wraparound services. They connect to the community. They find the services. Once they find the services, they connect back to the families. We're really intentional about making sure that we support families and also bond with students. We just have always done that. We've been in existence for 30 years. We're the only state that has family resource center coordinators. And so we're fortunate because of that. Also, I just want to talk to you a little bit just about our state mandated core components, and they vary, but some of them, I'll just mention that we have some around preschool, we have some around after school programs, so we can just help families with out of school time. We also have family and trainings, and that's where we try to promote strong foundations, just connecting families and getting them to do things together. We also have family literacy. Literacy is just important to us. We sponsored literacy nights, events. Even through the pandemic, we were able to have family drive-through events where we were able to give away books. And so, like I said, we really, the coordinators, they do whatever it takes. We also have a component that's health services. And so, we connect our families with vision and dental and hearing screening. And sometimes we even help organize some of those. And then at the YSC level, that's the middle and the high school, just want to talk about a little bit about those services too. We have career and exploration. And what we do is we just want to make sure that our students, all of our students that have the opportunity to learn about college or learn about career readiness, we partner just with any agencies that offer those kind of programs. Before the pandemic, we also were able to take our students on trips and let them see colleges or even let them go out to different companies, because the thing is, we understand that's important. We want to prepare them beyond the school. Also, we have summer programs. So if there's an agency out there and you're going to have some programs for youth, please connect with me, because I'll connect you with our youth service center coordinators so we can get our youth that want to work employed. We also have a component where we focus on substance abuse education. And our whole goal there is try to prevent our students to use alcohol, tobacco, or any other kind of drugs. And so, we do counseling, we provide support, we talk with our students. The last one I want to talk about is we have a component called family crisis and mental health. And so we just are trying to make sure that we support the well-being of our students, the well-being of our families. And if there is someone that's out there and if you have a need, you can certainly connect with me. If you are trying to reach your family resource youth service center coordinator, all you have to do is whatever school your child is connected to, just call the school and say, I need to speak to the Frisky. If you say that, everybody knows what who the Frisky is. If that doesn't work, you can certainly call me, and I'll give you my number right now. It is 502-485-3703. I have 3 office staff members. They're awesome. They will connect you to me. I'm open to any mode of communication. If you want to chat, I'm willing to chat. If you want to email, I'm willing to email. If you want to meet and you want over coffee and talk about, the support you need or how you can even support our department, then I'm willing to do that. Just want you all to know we're passionate about what we do. I'm passionate about what I do. I have done a lot of different positions and jobs. And one of the things I will say there, and it's 2 things that you mentioned. I loved being a special ed teacher. I loved being the principal at Cane Run. I was there almost 10 years. I love working with the coordinators. It's no other job that I really, really love, because it allows us to provide wraparound services, provides us to really connect with our families. And then our families they're the center of what we do. And we know that if we can change just the outlook for our families, and if we can encourage them, then we're going to have this society and a better society. And so we know it does take everybody. And one of the things that we say we do, whatever it takes, but we understand too, it takes the village. And I think that's one thing I didn't want to leave tonight without saying, that it takes all of us. If we want change, it will take all of us. And so I thank you again for allowing me to be here and share the little piece of the work that we do. But hopefully, I hope you leave this knowing that whatever we can do to provide, we're available to do that. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that vital information with us. This is the portion of the education forum where we ask questions. We have allotted 15 minutes for Q&A. To avoid talking over each other, we ask that you unmute your mic and ask your question, or put it in the chat. After asking your question, please put your mic back on mute. We will get to as many questions as we possibly can in this designated time. I'm going to start, if I may, a question that I heard y'all all talk about funding. And did you or your divisions get any stimulus funding for what you're doing? And this goes to all three of you to answer. And can you say how much? And and how are you using that funds, specifically as it relates to racial equity? Anyone can start. Did y'all hear my question?
Yeah, well, I'll go.
I can go ahead.
Well, we're a nonprofit, so no, we didn't receive any. We did not receive any stimulus dollars. However, we have been able to leverage stimulus dollars from both JCPS, the city, and private donations as well. Like I said, to support the learning hubs over the past year, we raised about $1.5 million, and for summer learning, JCPS kicked in our contract. It was almost $2 million that was spent, and then they whatever in kind, so all the friskies, all the mental health supports, and all those different type of things that was, I'm sure, several $1 million itself. But the thing is, we were at a conference. We were at I'm part of an initiative with Harvard where they bring together different cities who are doing this kind of work. And Jeffrey Canada, who founded the Harlem Children's Zone, you may be familiar with, one of the things that he said, he really implores cities to not sit on these stimulus dollars with, trying to think about like, well, how do we spend it, or how do we pay for it, or how do we sustain it? Because, this is really a once in a lifetime opportunity that we have to really engage and infuse resources into the community. So like I said, we're still in conversations about, how to, because again, with Evolve 502, really what one of our key goals is to be a convener and to facilitate systems change. And so really by getting everybody to the table and having the conversation, because again, people's priorities often align, but we just want to make sure that we're not, you're not being repetitive in how you're spending money. So it's really important to have the conversation together with, like I said, folks from the United Way, folks from the city, folks from the district, folks from private, foundations, to all talk about what are the different pieces that you can pick up. So those conversations and working together is really vital. And I think that's really the biggest thing that has changed over this time, is that everybody has really seen that it, as Dr. Golfner said, it really takes everybody together. And so everybody pushing together, we can figure out how to move some rocks.
I could answer that question too. We did receive some stimulus fund. Our department, and of course, is time limited, so we will only be able to receive this support for 2 years, which is a little scary because this is a great opportunity. We are seeing for the first time, we were actually able to provide enough tutoring for all our homeless students that needed tutoring and extended learning opportunities during the summer. We use some of those fundings to support additional social workers. I think that I mentioned before that we serve about 12,000 homeless students. However, my department only had at that point 4 social workers. So imagine 4 social workers for several thousand students. And we did receive about $400,000 that we will be able to use, for 2 years. And again, those dollars came through Title I, meaning that there are a lot of rules and regulations. So a lot of our families, they come to us and they're looking for flexibility. I really need help with, let's say, utilities. And of course, we are limited about what type of allowable expenses we can use depending on what type of dollars, what type of funds we are using. So I will say those funds have been definitely beneficial. I'm looking forward additional flexibility. And when it comes to how do we align those funds with racial equity, we use in our department, and the same thing as JCPS, we use the racial equity protocol analysis to make sure that anytime that we think about funding, about tutoring, about where to locate our programs, we are using that tool to really target what should be our priorities. And I will say that this tool has allowed to see some of the things that were wrong with our own system. So because of that, we have changed some of the way that we provide transportation for our homeless students and allocated additional support for families so they can advocate better, for themselves. So.
Thank you. I wanted to share, we had an opportunity to apply for the governor's emergency education relief funding. And so it's called GEAR funding. And so we did have some of our center coordinators to apply for that. And we were granted that. And so everything that we do really in the FRIS department, it's always talks about removing barriers. Actually, we are receive funding from the state, and we're funded because of based on free and reduced lunch. And so everything that we do is it's about making sure equity is provided. And so that's just the heart of just the FRIS grant. We did have an opportunity, like I said, some of this centers to apply for that GEAR funding. And we were awarded some of those fundings. And so our center coordinators who will be providing programs and activities, making sure that it certainly does reach the students that that are in need. Also, everything, I think I'm going to go back to what Giselle said. Every time that we actually even talk to a community partner at JCPS, anytime that we are looking at a professional service contractor, we run it through the REAP document. And that's just to make sure that everything that we do is equitable. And so that's just something that JCPS in general has just asked us all to do. And so that makes sure that we're really intentional, making sure that we, that our funds, any kind of funds that we get, that they go towards the needs of our students. And so that is a tool that we use, like I said, in everything that we do in the FRIS office.
That's real interesting, because my follow-up question was about REAP, believe it or not. How did you filter it through there? And what changes have you made since then? And then after I finish this question, then Ian has a couple of questions. I see people in the chat. So how did you, what changes have been made since you used the REAP? And for those that don't know what REAP means, Racial Equity Analysis Protocol. Okay, so what changes have you all seen by using that protocol?
I can tell you one of the changes that we immediately see and that I do. So even if I was saying earlier, I'd love to meet with community partners or organizations. And so when I meet with them, I actually, that conversation, that meeting, I run it through the REAP department. And run it through just even that REAP tool, because I want to make sure too that there's no any inequities. I want to make sure there's no biases. I want to make sure too that when I'm meeting with them, that companies and organizations know it's going to serve, that I'm using that. And so I started that last year, just when I even through the pandemic, when I would have virtual meetings with partners or with anybody. Also, any professional service contractors, I want to. So if we have a contract with someone, we run it through the tool. We have to address if there's any inequities. Also, if we think there's going to be, we have to say which group may be affected. We have to go back and examine it. If there is some issue that we think that may be a concern, we have to sort of stop and have conversations with stakeholders and make sure that we're making the right move for our students and our families before that we move forward. And so those are some of the changes that I see. And then too, even in my own department, when we have a racial equity task force. And so when coordinators may bring maybe an issue or concern to me, I actually tell them, I said, we have this REAP tool. Whatever your concern is, run it through the tool. Even if it's just you sitting in your office, run it through the tool, ask yourself the questions, because I feel like what it does, it removes all this subjectivity, the thing to it, just run it through the tool. And if there's a problem, then that's what you submit to whoever your concern is. And so, that's what I do. And so if I'm looking at something and I'm like, so how do we need to make sure there's no inequities? I look at the tool, I run it through the tool. and I address it, and even in my office. So if anybody even were to call my office staff, they would say, oh yes, Dr. Golfner. Even today I met with new coordinators and I shared the new REAP tool with them, because I want everybody to know, all of our coordinators and everybody that we work with, and like I said, even my office staff, that is how we ensure equity. And so that's some of the changes that I've seen, that there's really intentional conversation about utilizing the tool, and then making sure that we address our own biases as we're doing that.
Thank you.
So one of the questions from the chat was, how do students and families learn of all of these wraparound services, especially the new folks, and how does the connection happen?
I can tell you a little bit about how our department reaches out to families in general. Every single family in JCPS completes something that we call residency form, which is a quick questionnaire that asks about housing situation. And that allows to assess whether or not they could be potentially experiencing homelessness or about to, or at risk. And that allows to kind of target support for them. So that is one way. We also have made the commitment that every single JCPS school personnel will take McKinney-Vento training so they can identify who are eligible for our services. And not only that, but also they are able to identify what are the services that families are eligible for. We go on a step further with that, and we provide training for community agencies, especially social workers, because we understand that many times families feel like they might not want to share that information at the school level. So we want to train as many people as possible so they can kind of share what resources are available. I do want to mention something. It is going back to your question, because I think it's so important that we talk about the REAP protocol and how it has translated in actually steps to improve the system. And I will say some of the changes that we have seen, at least in our department, is diverse hiring, which is so important. As our families come, they want to see them represented. So that is something that I have seen as a result of using the REAP. Another one has been when we provide tutoring, we do target tutoring and we pay attention to the location where we are, where we're serving the families. We're also trying to make sure that we are setting tutorings and programs around the needs of the families, which sometimes is convenient to say, hey, let's set up this parent-teacher conference at 3 p.m. Well, it might not be convenient for everybody. So we kind of pay attention to that. And for example, we will say we had to provide translation because we have a lot of families that are in need of translation services. So we are intentional with using the REAP to translate that into actual actionable steps.
Thank you. Dr. Davis, are the learning hubs, community learning hubs still in existence? And if I'm a parent, how do I gain access to them?
So that's a complicated question. So yes, they are, because again, we did not actually create them. We just leveraged many nonprofits and churches who were already doing this work. So during the pandemic, when schools were closed, of course, people, families were clamoring. It was very much word of mouth. And so what we did was we set up an online portal that we linked through the JCPS website so that people could see what opportunities were available. What we're doing now is we're trying to, again, raise more dollars to support this initiative and create more opportunities. And JCPS, through their information technology department, is going to build us a better site. So it'll be linked to the JCPS site that it'll be in real time what locations there are, how many seats are available, what grades they serve. And so that's something that we're working on now so that, again, all these organizations it can be really a one-stop shop online portal, and we want to do that for summer as well, because we recognize, it's and that's something that we can link to the Urban League website or the NAACP website or Evolve 502 website, but it's just the same information all in one place.
So they are having those learning hubs now, but
well, like I said, they pretty much are just boys and girls clubs or
okay.
Pastor Smith at Portland church.
Okay.
So it's all these different organizations who already were supporting kids. Is just providing them again the resources to expand or continue their work when there really weren't any. Because what the real problem was is that many of these programs, we call them OST, out of school time. They typically do this work, but especially when schools were closed, they were supporting kids all day and not just like 3 hours after school. So it was really just a reimagining what that looked like. And same thing with summer. A lot of summer programs without our funding, they did a couple hours or something like that. But we really asked organizations, many of them did all day programs, and then we provided the food, we provide help with staff, JCPS staff. And we made it free. So we actually paid for kids to attend. So the transportation wasn't a barrier, cost wasn't a barrier. So really just honestly, it's, this is the first time where this has all really come together from a comprehensive community standpoint, where community organizations, churches, the district, it was all one program. And so what the goal is to continue to work closer together so that, because there were actually more kids in JCPS schools. The difference is that we sort of untethered kids from, say a kid lives by Englehart, but they go to Crosby. I don't know if that's how it, but just for the sake of it. Typically programs, the kid has to go to Crosby to get an after school program. But like during the summer, we said, if you live near Englehart, just go to Englehart. We have the same program, the same type of resources. So Dr. Golfner's staff was at all these different schools. Mental health practitioners were at all these schools. So it didn't matter where you went, everybody got the same kind of support. And so that's what we're just pushing towards, because like I said, registration filled up in a week, less than a week, honestly, 5,000. Our goal was 5,000. We have to just keep opening schools because there was just so much demand. So, Dr. Polio, when he's out and about and he's talking, the numbers go from 5,000 to 10,000 to 50. So they keep expanding. So I think that the goal is to continue to provide more opportunities to serve young people. And again, nobody can do it by themselves. We all have to do it together. So that's ultimately the vision, to keep providing more and more places for kids to be able to go after school during the summer, to have enriching, safe opportunities to, get instruction, have fun, and just be kids.
I have a follow-up question. Well, it's not a follow-up question. It's another question. Just, in education, we have this thing that we use a lot of educational ease, and a lot of people don't understand what it is. So when you speak about would someone define wraparound programs? Would one of you all define that? What do you mean when you say wraparound programs?
Well, how I define it is it's really at the heart of equity, which, to your point, a lot of people misconstrue the difference between equity and equality. And at the heart of equity is providing an individual what they need. And so as our focus is education and making sure that every young person can graduate with and go on into a productive and healthy life, however they can see that to be, our wraparound services that we try to facilitate hopefully lead us in that direction. So it could be a variety of things. And another partner that we engage with is United Way. So they have a platform which Dr. Golfner uses called United Community. And as that rolls out more and more in schools and in the community, that will be really, really helpful, because unless you're really plugged in, you don't know who all the different vendors are, who, mental health, housing, my lights got cut off, all these different type of things. But so this is one thing that Friskies are able to do. They're able to provide that connection point to get a young person what they need. So how I define wraparound services are, whatever you need to be a whole and safe and productive child. And the thing with equity, everything is not the same. Some kids need mentoring, some kids need tutoring, some kids need homeless, a kid may be homeless. Before I started working with Giselle, which I was on Giselle's interview panel. So I was there even, so I've, been there for all this. I didn't have a full understanding of what homelessness was. And so I was having conversations with young people who were, sort of quote unquote couch surfing. I stay with my auntie, I stay with my, I didn't realize that was homelessness. And so it really changed my worldview. So to your point, I think it's really, the community can just really educate themselves and think about, at least just asking the question. If you see a young person in danger or like they need some help, I know some people don't want everybody in their business, and I get it. But what my thing is, everything that I do is focused on how can I support children. And I think if everybody has that as their North Star, like, you don't have to be a teacher, you don't have to be a frisky, you don't have to be, if you see a child in danger, or you see a child that needs help, how can I help that child? How can I find somebody? How can I find Dr. Golfner? How can I find one of her staff people? How can I find, just connect them to something. And that's ultimately like what I think that we're all trying to do, just provide connection points. You may have heard a lot about disconnected youth. There was a long story. What's the opposite of a disconnected youth? It's a connected youth. So we need to provide as many, the NAACP, if you see young people, you have young people or programs or in your church or in your community, I think a lot of times people think that, you have to be this person with a cape and swinging, coming down out of the sky. It's really not that. What we need is just more people to connect to young people. And then the more connections that young person has, the healthier and more whole that child can be.
Thank you. Ian, do we have any more questions in the chat? You would like to give another one before our time runs out?
This question actually ties into Dr. Davis's last statement is, how do you work around confidentiality in regards to dealing with getting family services and talking amongst different agencies?
Yeah, well, JCPS folks is different because they have access, which being on the other side, that's one of my biggest frustrations, that I can't just pull up Infinite Campus and get what I need, but that's one of the things, again, in working, I would say from the outside, just quickly, having those conversations, because, so for instance, during the pandemic, a lot of these learning hubs that I call Churches United Way, or Boys and Girls Clubs, Cabbage Patch, Neighborhood House, all these different organizations, they could not talk to their teachers about their kids' grades and stuff because confidentiality. But what we did was we were able to work with JCPS's data and evaluation department to say, hey, this is what they really need. And so Dr. Dina Dawson and her team were able to streamline a document that we didn't need to go through that long process. And really, say Vanessa was working at Dr. McPhail, was working at a location and she's working with Charles, she could directly just talk to Charles's teacher. And so we were able to streamline that. And again, I think the larger problem in our community, I think, is that we don't ask the second question. You'll say, can I talk to Charles's teacher? And somebody says no. And it's like, all right. And like, that's it. We need more people to ask another question. Because if you say no, and I'll say, okay, well, why? And then you tell me why. And there's a good reason, because you don't want everybody to have access to all the kids' information. Is there a way, though, that we can work around that? Yes. Like, let's work on the solution. Let's not always, and that's just something, again, that I think anybody can do. Don't take the first no for an answer. Ask a second question, because there may be a good reason. I know a lot of people, they always want kids' data. There are lots of laws and lots of reasons why you can't access, very good reasons that you can't access that information. However, if I go and call a Dr. Golfner and I say, well, how can we do this? I'll let her work her brilliant mind, and she's going to figure out a way that we can make it happen. And that's what we just really have to do. We just have to really be willing to think that we're all trying to support kids the best and figure out how can we get across barriers. We can't just let these things be a barrier and we just say, oh, never mind, again, I'm not from here. I know the relationship JCPS to the community is very challenging sometimes. But I'll tell you, I've not met one person who intentionally is not trying to support kids in JCPS. What hampers a lot of stuff in JCPS is policy. It's policy, it's the education ease, it's all that kind of stuff that people don't understand and they just give up. But if you are persistent, there's a way around all of it. And not an illegal or kind of shady way, but there's a way to get around stuff. And the way that we do that is by talking. Because if you don't understand why Dr. Golfner says no to stuff, or if you don't understand the McKinney-Vento Act and why Giselle fusses at people to bus kids all around the city, then you just think that she's just wasting your money. But no, that's a federal law. It's not her, it's a federal law, and there's a very good reason for it. So we have to have forums like this, and so people can get educated on all the different types of things that there are, so that we can, again, move past that first question and see, how can we really get to supporting kids? But again, the short answer to that long soliloquy is that there's a way to get not around it, but to be able, if there's this person who wants to support kids, we can support kids. That won't be the barrier.
And we have went over a lot of time on the questions, but did you have one more question? I'm willing to do one more. And because we know it'll be 8 o'clock, it's 7:30 now, but I don't want to go past that. Do you have another question that we need to ask that somebody can get information from?
Yeah, so what is the process for actually receiving these wraparound services?
I'll just go ahead and jump in about the FRISC coordinators. If there's some kind of service that you, if there's a need, so if we have any families out there, our community members, if there's a need and someone, if you would just reach out, it's certain different kind of ways. So if it's elementary and you know what school the child goes to, just call the school and ask for the coordinator. The coordinator will work, they will work and find out everything that the family needs. They'll, make that contact. If it's a youth service center, the same thing. If that's not a possibility and people don't want to do that, they can call my office. And what we will do is that we can give you the coordinator's name. We can give you the coordinator's number. We can even send an email to the coordinator to contact you. I mean, so we can, all of those kind of things to make that connection happen is not a problem at all. Actually, even before I came on this forum tonight, I already talked to my office staff and I said, after this, we're probably going to get some calls and I already want to give you guys a heads up. So they're already aware that some people may call. That's just the way I do things. So everybody knows what's going on. So but like I said, if your child goes to Cane Run Elementary, certainly you can reach out to the school there and say, hey, I need to speak to the Frisky. They're going to give you Melissa Escobar. If somebody needs to reach out to Eastern High School, you can reach out to Eastern and they're going to give you Adrian Graham. But if you need to, you can just call that number again. It was put in the chat and that is our Frisk department number, the 485-3703. And there will be 3 office staff members that will answer that phone and connect you with the coordinator. If you're trying to connect with me, then just ask for me and then they'll make sure that I connect with you. If there's any kind of support that our families need, we can connect with them. We can find supports. We can find, if we need to refer someone, it's all we need to know what the need is. And I think Dr. Davis said sometime, even when we think about wraparound service, we can help, but we just need to know what the need is. And I understand it that sometimes people don't want to share, but we can't help you if we don't know. So just make sure, reach out to us. If you know someone that's in need, connect them to us so we can help them.
Thank you, panel. This concludes our question and answer session. But before we close tonight, we have a new segment called Just What Does the NAACP Do? Mr. Haven Harrington, the chair of the Veterans Committee at the Louisville branch NAACP, is here tonight to answer that question. Mr. Harrington?
Thank you, Michelle. I'd like to take just a moment to say thank you for this opportunity. I've been chairman of this committee for just over 2 years, and this committee is it's an interesting bunch of men and women that are involved in activities impacting veterans within the Louisville area. I myself am an Air Force veteran. I got my commission in the Air Force through University of Louisville. I was given the first full scholarship by the Air Force from U of L, which helped me get through school. I spent 4 years in the Air Force, and thanks to my education at Speed Scientific School, I spent another 35 years working for DuPont Chemicals. But again, I am a veteran, and one thing I've learned about working with veterans is that through the generations, the community has accepted us in different ways over time. I was a Vietnam era veteran. We were not very welcome. Veterans today are treated very different. And our committee, we need more members because a lot of us came out of one particular group. And what we're learning is that there's a different level of acceptance, and there's a different level of need among veterans. And there are a lot of opportunities out there. The group I work with, my predecessor, they were very instrumental in getting the Veterans Day Parade restarted. A lot of people don't know that, but the NAACP Veterans Affairs Committee took the lead on that many years ago, and it's now something that people look forward to. John Mouse, who works for my committee, he leads up the Mayor's Week of Valor, which will be coming up very soon, which is a full week of celebrating the contributions of veterans. I say I have, there are men on the committee that work with what we refer to, it's called the Veterans Alternative Court. And that Veterans Alternative Court is an opportunity for a veteran who has a nonviolent felon to come to that alternative court. And these men serve as his mentors, as his guide, and they help him get his life back together or her life back together. They help them get housing, they help them find jobs. And the main thing is they allow them to go back into the community as people without a felony conviction on their record. Our committee, I'm very proud of the things these men do. And what has happened over the years, each one has sort of developed their own niche. We have some that work with NABVETS, National Association of Black Veterans. And on Saturdays, you might see us down at Greenwood Cemetery trying to clean things up. Every year, the Salvation Army has an event for veterans and the homeless, and it's called a stand down. It's a time when veterans who are homeless can come down to the Salvation Army, and they receive a lot of counseling, benefits. We've all participated in that. They get survival gear, and we try to find them housing, give them haircuts, all the things they're going to need to survive on the street, and hopefully to survive in the housing we can find for them. A lot of things out there that we can do for veterans. We have some of our committee are working to be veterans benefit administrators. These are people who can sit down with a veteran, access their records, and help them find out what benefits they're entitled to and help them get those benefits. A lot of things that can be done in the community to help veterans if they are aware of it, if they take advantage of it. And I would love to see more men and women join the NAACP and join our Veterans Affairs Committee. Most of the people on the committee are veterans. Some are not, and that's okay, because it's work that needs to be done, and it's an opportunity for people to better themselves, better their lot in life. What I would encourage you to do, if you really want to get a good in-depth understanding of how we function and how the people on this committee function, St. Stephen's Church has a TV show called Lift Every Voice. And we've had participants from the family court, we've had them from Salvation Army Stand Down, but there've been a number of occasions where we have participated on Lift Every Voice and had half-hour sessions with Raymond Burse, who's the moderator, explaining what we do and how we do it, and just encouraging people to take advantage of it. So if you really want to know more about what we do, I would encourage you just to go look up Lift Every Voice and go through some of the programs, find the ones that you're interested in, and learn about the Veterans Affairs Committee, because it was an eye-opener to me, the number of things out there available for veterans that can help people in need. And one thing the pandemic has taught us is there are a lot of people out there in need of a lot of different things. And we don't want this to be opportunity lost. And Michelle, again, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and I'm going to help you stay within your time frame.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. At this time, I now have words for you all from Ian Brandon again about our upcoming November session. Mr. Brandon? Can you hear?
Want to get my screen share up and running. So to give everybody a heads up, our next community forum will be Thursday, November the 11th, same time, 6:30. And the topic is state testing results and how JCPS will be moving forward academically. The panelists will be JCPS Chief of Schools, Mr. Robert Moore, and JCPS Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Carmen Coleman. So I'll leave that up for a moment. Then the registration link is there. I'll also incorporate that into the chat as well.
Thank you, Ian. This concludes our forum tonight. Again, I want to thank our presenters. I wish we had had more time. I look forward to our next forum in November. So I'm going to say good night, be safe, get vaccinated. Good night.
And just a reminder for all of the JCPS folks, I did include the PD credit link in the chat. So if you haven't, I'll keep the meeting open for just a moment and you can grab that link.
Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.